So this is fun. As soon as we got back from the Denver Narrow Gauge Convention, we got a phone call from Adam Pinellas, and he said, hey, there's going to be a caboose hop on the Cumbres and Toltec, and do you want to come?
Absolutely.
Well, duh. So we just dropped everything, got in the car, and left.
We couldn't have picked a better time to make this trip. The fall colors were just amazing.
Just beautiful. And we got to ride in Lindsay Ashby's private caboose. It's a little Rio Grande Southern caboose. He used to own the Georgetown Loop, and when he left, he took this caboose with him.
Nice.
and he had the Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec restore it for him. While we were in Antonito, we checked out the locomotive shops. The ulterior motive here was to see this. This is Rio Grande Western number 168, a T12 10-wheeler. There's only 2 of these left in the world, and the Friends of the Cumbres and Toltec are restoring 168 back to operating condition. How cool is that? 168 was on display in Colorado Springs for, I think like 75 years. They were built in 1883 exclusively for passenger service, and back then passenger trains were quite small, 3 or maybe 4 cars is all. In the 1930s, they were being replaced by larger engines like the K28, and these little guys just couldn't keep up at all, and so a decision was made to just get rid of them. Now, 2 of those engines had just been shopped, and fortunately, it seemed wasteful to throw away a perfectly good engine, so 168 and 169 were donated and put on public display. 168 was put in the park in Colorado Springs, and 169 was put on display in Alamosa. Fortunately, both engines were pretty well cared for. 168 was always kept in fresh paint, which is good because it was just exposed to the open elements. Tragically, so many of the engines in parks were allowed to just rust away to nothing. But 168, it looked like it was in really good shape. Looked like you could fire it up and drive it away. So someone said, hey, let's fire it up and drive it away. They hauled it over here to Antonito and dismantled it to see just what condition the boiler was in. The first thing they did was pull out all of the boiler flues. This is necessary so that you can get inside the boiler and inspect that and measure the thickness of the metal. Notice here that the original primer paint is even here and in flawless condition. These little dots are where they measured the thickness using a technique called magnafluxing. One person inside, one person outside, they can measure the thickness. And everywhere they checked, there was more than ½ inch of metal on ½ inch boilerplate. So it's perfect. It's like it's brand new. They had to scrape down to the actual metal to take their measurements, and that's probably the most damage the boiler's ever seen. Check here, the running gear is in equally good condition. The bearings need to be replaced, but you would expect that, so new bearings are going to be cast, and that should get the whole mechanism up and running. The original headlight had just been electrified, so this is really fun. It still has the original box headlight on it. How about that? For the most part, it's in really good shape. That doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work that needs to be done. They fixed up the tender frame here. It's in really good shape anyway, but a fresh coat of paint and new wood decking. They also had to build a new tank for it. That's it here on the left, the original tank being there on the right. They're going to preserve the original tank, but it's a little bit thin, so they just built a new one. Also, the wood cab is going to be completely rebuilt out of fresh wood. And speaking of wood, the original passenger cars were also all built out of wood, and like I said, this was originally a passenger locomotive, and it can't really handle the kind of service that they do here on the Cumbres and Toltec. So they got the idea to completely restore 4 original passenger cars from the same era, and they will have this one 4-car train just for special service. The first 2 cars here are in the wood shop and are nearing completion and just looking really, really good. The other 2 cars are outside under tarps, awaiting their turn here in the shops. Well, as soon as this is finished, I think we should come ride it.
Absolutely. Just drop everything and go.
We're getting pretty good at that.
We certainly are.
We should just keep a bag packed.
Yeah, we do.
Well, this was sure a ball.
I know, and they had 3 cabooses for 12 people. Wow, it doesn't get better than that.
No, your own little freight train for 12 people, and just everybody gets their own caboose.
Yeah, I love cabooses, though.